You know how winter is getting close in San Diego? The sunsets, those epic afterburn sunsets with those high wispy clouds that come in and the color that just lights up the sky. That happened last night. So I happened to be out and I happened to have my camera and I stopped at one of my favorite sunset spots overlooking this airport runway and got some really cool shots that I just am absolutely in love with. But what I want to show you today is how we can take those photos and merge them into a panoramic in Lightroom. It's super simple. You just have to go through a couple of steps while you're shooting to make sure that it lines up and that it works. But let's talk through this a little bit. I'm going to show you my screen here and I'll talk about the setup and then show you how to merge these photos into a panoramic. Let's dive in. Okay, here's a little hint of how that sunset looked. We're going to merge this photograph and this photograph. You can see the runway right in the middle of this photo here, and this photograph. So these were taken from a field overlooking this runway. So I had my 70 to 200 lens on here. So this image here was looking to the left of the scene. This image obviously is looking straight down the middle. And then this one over here is looking off to the right. And I love these, like the rays and the different colors of the sky here. Isn't this just exceptional? My goodness, what a beautiful sunset. You can see down below here, I already did this, but I'm going to do it again with you because I think it'll be fun. But you can see when I did this, I bracketed these shots, which wasn't totally necessary for a sunset, but I like doing that just so I have different exposures to play with when I am processing. So if I wanted to merge these, I could. I chose not to do that this time, but if we wanted to, we could go in and merge these into a single photograph, but I don't think we need to do that. I think we had enough dynamic range to work with here, and I don't think that was necessary. So to merge these into a panoramic, it's super simple. You can also see that I labeled these as 5 stars, so I knew which ones to grab. And to do that, you just hover your cursor down below and then just choose the star rating you'd like to give. So just quick little side tip there. Okay, so let's merge these into a panoramic. So we're just going to select the 3. This image, I'm going to hold down Command, select our second image, keep Command held down, and select our third image. So we're going to combine all 3 of these photos into one panoramic. And then I just right-click and pull up our photo merge and panorama merge. And then Lightroom is just going to take that, and it's quickly going to come up with this. Isn't this breathtaking? Like, this is just one of the most breathtaking sunsets I've seen in quite a long time. So Lightroom will just stitch those together for us just like that. I just stick with the spherical option here on this, which obviously looks great. There's this fill edges feature also. If that is off, you're going to see that it merged those 3 photos together, but it didn't have information to make it a perfectly framed photo. So if we do fill edges, it's just going to take that information and expand it all the way across so that we have a full photograph. And if you're happy with how it looks, simply hit merge, and then Lightroom is just going to put those 3 photos together into one panoramic, and then you're free to process that panoramic just as you would any other photograph. So I'll show you what I would do here. So here is the photo that we just created. And I look at these pinks and purples and streaks that are in the air. So there's honestly not a ton of processing that I don't want to do to this because this is straight out of camera. I use the Adobe Landscape Color Profile. White balance is still as shot. It applied some auto settings when it did the merge. I'm cool with that. We could go in and play with white balance a little bit and see what auto does. Auto really cools it off. I'm not a big fan of how that looks. And then daylight and cloudy are really going to warm it up. And again, I think that is too warm. It takes some of the blues out of it, and I don't like that. So I'm going to leave that as shot, which is a really nice representation of how this sunset looked. So I'm going to leave that right there. One of the things I might want to do is increase or decrease the shadows a little bit, kind of bring down the blacks of this foreground here, just so that pops a little bit more. I don't mind it silhouetted like this, but if we did want to just kind of increase the exposure of this, there's a couple of ways to do that down here. What I would do is go into our masking feature and select the sky. And while we're in the sky, we might pull down some highlights a little bit. Sometimes that's a nice thing to do when you have a really beautiful sunset or you have an evening type sky, is to go in and create a mask for the sky and then bring down the highlights, and let's see what that does. Yeah, I like that. I mean, it's personal preference. Do you like that? Do you want to bring the highlights all the way down, or do you like some of that light shining through? You don't want to pull them up too high because it just starts to just get overexposed there. But if I pull that down a little bit, I think I like how that looks. I think it looks really nice. We can do the contrast, bring up the contrast just a little bit. Again, we don't want to mess this up and make it look like a fake photograph. We just want to enhance what was already there. We can jump on down here to clarity and add just a little bit of texture, a little bit of clarity to that sky. So if we have that, and then we want to go down and just work on our foreground, work on our foreground here, then we'll just go up to our sky mask, hit these three little dots here. Then we're going to duplicate and invert this mask. And then that's just going to select this entire foreground area. And from here, we can go down to shadows and just pull those shadows up. And that's just going to give us just a little bit more recovery of those black areas there. But again, if we do this too much, we're going to see a lot of noise in here. When we're recovering dark areas in a photograph, that's where noise really, really pops out. So if we zoom in on this, you can see it's a pretty crisp shot. Pretty nice shot. But if we bring those shadows back down, some of that noise just starts to disappear a little bit. And if we increase the shadows, then we're going to increase it a lot. You can just see how noisy that actually is, but that's obviously way too much. So we'll bring up the shadows maybe about there. And yes, there is a denoise feature, but I have not. It's fantastic and it works great, but I haven't been using it a lot just because I don't mind noise. It's a photograph. Photographs have a little bit of noise in it, and it just makes it feel more authentic to me. I feel like when we denoise, it kind of gives it a kind of a softer, cartoonish type of look, and I'm not a great big fan of that. There are instances, I think, where some denoise makes sense, but in something like this, where we're talking about a landscape photograph, I'm not even going to mess with it. I'm just going to leave that as it is. But to capture the sky in all of its glory, I really thought a panorama would be the best way to do that. And I'm thrilled how this one came out. It just has all of that detail and texture in the sky and all the pinks and reds and yellows and oranges. And it's just like exploding overhead. And I really, really like that. So there you go. I mean, just like that, we've got a really killer panoramic image of this amazing sunset that happened. Obviously, a panoramic is nothing new, but if you didn't realize how easy it is to do in Lightroom, then there you go. It's really super simple, and then you can process the image just like normal. The trick is to get your shot lined up when you're out in the field. So definitely use a tripod, shoot in 3 intentional blocks, kind of overlapping a little bit so that Lightroom has some data to work with. So overlap your shots a little bit, shoot in 3 segments, and you can even do that a couple times. I mean, if you wanted to shoot a lower half with 3 segments and then shoot an upper version of the photograph with 3 segments, you could do it. And then combine those 3 on top, the 3 on bottom into individual panoramics. And then you'd have to move into Photoshop and combine those into one. But it's possible. I've done that before. I've seen other pros do really great work with that sort of a technique. So just another option that's available for you. Maybe that's something that we can cover in more detail later if you want to get a little bit more advanced on it. But for now, I think that's pretty cool. I love this feature. I love to create panoramics when it makes sense. And I think this is something that would look absolutely fantastic on somebody's office wall or just in a big empty room to put this up there. I think something like this would be great. And that's something you can create for yourself when you're out there. You can shoot and create the art that you want for your own space, or you can sell it and build a career out of it too. So whatever, just have some fun, create some amazing art, and I'm excited to see what you create. Feel free to share anytime. I'd love to see. Please do subscribe to the channel, give a like or a comment if you're feeling it, and we'll see you next time. Thank you for spending a few minutes with me.